Right, cheers.
Cheers, chap. It's absolutely freezing cold.
It's winter.
We're standing outside at the Black Friar in London.
In Blackfriars?
In Blackfriars, it's an old Art Nouveau pub, isn't it?
Oh, it's old, isn't it? It's got history, this place.
You can tell we're looking across the road and it looks like it's been here since London first ever existed.
Yeah, I reckon 17th century at least.
Yeah.
At least. Lots of like oak carved panels inside depicting sort of abbots and friars. This used to be a friary, didn't it? Friary, is that a word?
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
My monks lived, is that right?
And it's right on the river, so we're getting the old...
London, yes, it's February, so it's chilly. And we've just come off the back of Storm Ciara.
Is it finished now?
I think it's now subsiding. It's moved on into mainland Europe now, but it's still pretty windy and still pretty cold.
Oh, yeah. Happy winter.
Here we are. What are you drinking, mate? What you got?
Oh, you bought it.
Oh yeah.
I appreciate that.
Camden Pale Ale.
Camden Pale Ale. It's a good one. I do like a Camden Pale Ale.
Local.
Yeah.
I think you've probably sampled it before and reviewed it before, but for the benefit of the tape.
Yeah, it's nice and malty. Sort of slight citrusy hops. Slightly effervescent. Warmer than we are, which is nice, and incredibly drinkable. How about yourself?
Mortimer's,
Bob?
Mortimer's cider, 5%, which is quite strong for me for a cider for an empty stomach for me right now.
True.
But I've been for a run, so I'm feeling fresh.
You've been run along the river?
Yeah, and it's freezing cold, so
good for you.
Did 1.5 miles today, trying to work back up to the level of fitness.
Good for you.
So why not wash it down with a pint of fattening cider?
Yeah. For a nice meal.
Yeah.
So this might not be the longest pubcast on record,
based on the current air temperature.
I'm going to keep the use of my fingers, which I'm shoving in my pockets as we speak. But we put out a question. Do you want to see if anyone replied? Because I can't. My phone's recording the video. So
this is on. You keep talking. Tell some jokes or something. I'll find it. It's on the Pubcast reply.
Yes. Yeah. I saw a couple, but
start at
the
very beginning. What have we got?
I did put a quick shout out on my Insta story. My Instagram account is Inspect and Adapt, so I'm experimenting with some Insta stories, and put a shout out there. So if you want to follow that, then maybe you can get a bit of a heads up. Another way of getting involved, another way of getting in contact. So Jim Buckley Barrett.
Jim asked 2 questions. He's being greedy.
Oh, but we should actually do a toast. We've
got a new patron, haven't we?
New patron, Gianni Sawyer.
Gianni.
Very Italian first name, very English second name.
Yeah. And,
Gianni Sawyer.
Thank you, Gianni. Nice. Thanks very much.
Cheers to our full pint patron. Thank you. T-shirt and signed photo winging its way in the post to you very soon. We had a question from Gianni and we had 2 from Jim. Should we prioritise Gianni?
Okay. Gianni said, he had a good conversation about Scrum Masters on LinkedIn. Leaving the role. When should you leave a role and when should you stay and grit your teeth? Can any Scrum Master assignment be a lost cause? I think we've had a similar question before. We'll go with it.
Well, my initial reaction before you finished it, which is always a good reminder to listen to the end, was that are you hanging on when actually the team don't need you anymore? But that's more a case of you don't think you can be successful. And so is there any point staying? It's a tough one.
I probably stay, Mike, because we talked about this today, that I'm quite fiercely loyal, so sometimes I overstay and I should have moved on earlier.
And you do that for what reason?
I don't know, just I don't like letting people down. I think I feel a sense I'm a people pleaser, so I feel the sense of that I'll stick by people, try and help as much as I can.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's to my detriment.
But if someone in that team said to you, I don't think this is going to work here, I just can't stick it anymore, I'm going to leave, you wouldn't feel that they'd let you down?
No, I don't think so.
It's interesting that, isn't it? It's not necessarily reciprocal.
No.
I'm sort of I'm sort of the opinion that I think what appears to be a lost cause, given a couple of different conversations or a couple of different events, can quickly appear to be not a lost cause. So giving up too quickly is dangerous. But sometimes someone quite publicly and visibly saying, I'm out because of this, sends a much stronger message than let's just battle on. Not necessarily because it's going to lead to a mass exodus,
but it has a ripple effect.
It can have a ripple effect, but it also says to
the message.
The people that might need to do something differently, that unless something changes, they are going to hemorrhage talent.
That's a brave thing to do, isn't it? It's very easy for us to stand here and say that as an individual consultant.
Yeah.
But it is a very brave thing to do. It's very hard if you're trapped.
But life is short. Life is short, and your working career, you spend a lot of your life at work, and if you're in an environment that isn't supporting you, and
you're not happy,
isn't living the values that are important to you or that you feel are being, you've been sold, then you'd be surprised how many opportunities there are out there for people with integrity.
First ever Scrum project I had, which you know all about, but the listeners maybe don't, was my first ever ScrumMaster project, and I was dealing with some internal BT stakeholders in BT Retail. I won't say their names in case I'm sure they're still out there somewhere, but
don't they listen to this, mate?
But one guy in particular made my life very difficult, and I have to admit, I threw in the towel. I rang up Dennis and I said, Den, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this role. I can't lead this team. I can't deal with this person. And I kind of just, looking back now, I waved the white flag pretty much and said, this is making me unhappy.
Well,
and I'm sure I lost a little bit of credibility for that. I'm sure it is. At the
with
time.
who?
With the team and with Den. But it was the best. Selfishly, I had to act on my own self-interest.
But I think everybody has, and everybody should have, a line that you should protect. A line in the sand that, unacceptable behaviour, you shouldn't have to tolerate that. We had a conversation about that today in our advanced class, didn't we? About dealing with toxic individuals or people who are sabotaging or undermining what's going on. And there's an element of perhaps we could help them, perhaps we could understand them, perhaps we could coach them, maybe we need to escalate it. But there comes a time when at some point, regardless of your authority, regardless of your position, as a human being or as a member of an organisation that has codes of conduct and health and safety and workplace directives and things, that you need to call out bad behaviour.
Especially in today's climate around mental well-being and people and people keeping things in when they really should be able to talk about them. That's surely even more important now to have those conversations.
I suspect that Gianni isn't talking about toxic behaviour. I'm going to take the opportunity to branch off slightly.
Yeah.
And say that this is, an organisation that publicly is saying, Agile, but actually when it comes down to it, isn't putting the money where their mouth is, isn't walking the talk, isn't actually supporting things, carrying on with the old ways of working with a veneer, that kind of, what do they call it these days? Zombie Agile. Zombie Scrum. And I work with leadership teams and tell them that partly my job is to highlight to them when they're not demonstrating the behaviours that they know are required. And it's difficult, there are pressures behind it, but equally within the organisation that's something we all need to become better at, with permission. So a leadership team, for example, would engage me and say we want to become this kind of organisation. We want to adopt a more enabling, servant leadership style to the way that we work, building up and supporting cross-functional teams and so on. And we'll talk about, okay, so what's needed to make that happen? They will name it, not me. They will define it. And then my contract with them is, so what do you want me to do? You want me to hold you accountable to that, or are you going to...
And we talked again, this came up a little bit today, being interviewed as a Scrum Master as well. I think I would be a lot more aware of if I was going for a position or going to become a Scrum Master job application where it was in a company that was not going to try and make a success. Good companies generally attract good talent. Is that fair?
Yes. Yeah.
And we've talked about this before, but would you be a Scrum Master these days that wants a success, not an easy life, but wants a successful life? Or would you want to be that Scrum Master who's earned their, as Gianni says here, gritted it out? Do you want to be that war hero?
I don't think
I do these days. I honestly don't think I do.
I do like a challenge, but effectively as a consultant, we don't get asked into highly functional environments. So we are.
But I'm still involved with them that have gone through a journey. Yeah. I still like to be involved.
Yeah, and it is nice. Yeah, you get some time back at some clients that are really quite well mature and highly functional because of the hard yards that you and they have put in over the years.
And I know that they, even though they're encountering an obstacle, they've got the culture to overcome.
Yeah. And I know from just working with you, those are some of your most rewarding days, right?
Yeah.
So,
but it's hard if you haven't had that level of success yet.
Yeah.
Don't beat yourself up, Gianni, or even if it's yourself or anyone else. Is that you've got to inevitably look after yourself. If you can't change your organisation, change your organisation. Mr. Schwaber once said.
I think it was Ron Jeffries actually.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Sorry, Mr. Jeffries. Yeah, move on. I thought that I would, when I left BT, I thought I'll never be able to be a Scrum Master again.
Really?
Yeah, I honestly thought, that's it, that was my one shot and I've missed it. But, time moves on.
Yeah. Any other, what did Jim ask?
Jim asked a couple of questions, we'll go in reverse order. This one's more relevant to me at the moment. What would be good metrics that would be easy to generate for management that keep asking for RAG reports, bar value delivered, obviously. Okay. Bar value delivered.
Yeah, so my number one metric is Jeff dollars, as we all know.
But that's what he's talking about, value.
Yes.
He's talking about other things. The harder things to measure though, aren't they? We did a whole thing on this in the fluffy side.
We did.
Trying to measure the fluffy side of it. Happiness.
I've forgotten that.
How do you measure happiness? It's hard, but it's possible. You can take team employee morale surveys, baseline them, compare them over time.
Yeah.
Are we happier as teams? Are we more innovative? Are we creating more?
Yeah.
Are we the number of ideas that teams are generating, the number of ideas that get implemented, improvements that get implemented?
So myself and Andrea Tomasini and Dave Snowden, as part of the Organic Agility framework that we created a really cool dashboard that allows people to visualise the culture and how it's changing in real time against different competing values around adhocracy and clan culture, things like that, and getting that visualisation of this is where we are right now, this is the spread of our culture, this is the shape of our culture, and then in real time, over small periods of time and long periods of time, seeing how that shape is changing, and then being able to drill down to see the actual events, the stories behind that change in culture. And there's lots of other things within that in terms of how quickly were decisions made, who made those decisions, whether those were appropriate for those people to make those, so the degree of autonomy and the degree of standardisation and so on. So I think assessing the contextualisation, the coherence we call it, the coherence of the decision making and responsiveness, those types of things, and they are relatively easy to do. It doesn't take a huge amount of time or effort to create this information, but it needs to be decentralised. The whole organisation needs to be contributing this data in really quite low cost manner in terms of time. You know, so we have apps, and dashboard, and an app that people can capture their stories in real time, really quickly.
So these are free-form text stories?
Well, so there's an element of narrative there, free-form text, but there's also dragging stones into different quadrants and three different points of a triangle and dragging those three are all competing.
Okay.
And so how was that balanced off? And they can be aggregated up, and then they can be segregated by department or product line or what have you to see where the differences are and where the commonalities are. And if you can then lay it on top of that, the sort of complexity level, the domain, and then assess the coherence of it, it's really quite a powerful visual tool.
I'm going to be a bit old-fashioned about this and suggest, is there still value in just putting your ear to the, sitting down at a desk and just listening to people, getting a sense for, and this is the thing I've seen, even with the successful companies that I've worked with, where the emphasis is moved towards measurement-driven or value-driven, metric-driven success, is that when you focus on the metrics, you lose some of the basics. Just literally sitting down, asking people, how's it going? What's working, what isn't working? And doing that frequently, having an open door policy that people can come and talk to you about their problems, or equally talk to you about their successes. Has that gone missing in some respects? Or are we focusing too much on the metrics? I know it's harder in bigger organisations, but it's not impossible.
No, I know. I think so. I'm trying to help Jim there in that he's asked a question in a limited number of characters, and so I'm going to assume that he's not precluding the more subjective, softer, conversational type temperature check, but looking at data that can be quite easily visualised and seen quickly. So I think it is a mixture of those kinds of things. I think it's easy. We had a conversation in Dublin on one of our most recent podcasts, and my view about how perhaps we haven't been as scientific as we could have been, considering that we are in a complex domain. We should be running experiments, and we should be gathering data and trying to get past our expertise, what our expertise tells us, and allowing those solutions to emerge. And that gathering the data without trying to take away that subjectivity, because it's, first of all, if you're measuring how many people are coming and saying I've got a problem, is that, I always use the number of people, there's a correlation between the number of people on the street, the police people on the streets, and crime. So the more police you have on the streets, the more crime there is. Well, it's not that, it's just more crimes reported because it's used as a report. So if you've got this open door policy where you can raise this stuff, then some of your metrics are actually going to look like they're going down. It's something that we need to just get that original benchmark and be able to assess.
So I was on a product, it's more a product metrics workshop last week at Mind the Product, this conference I was at, but they were talking about a number of things. And one of the things was about statistics, and which I was never very good at school.
I used to like statistics.
But they were talking about how much data do you need for data to become meaningful?
Yeah.
Statistically significant.
Yes.
Do you know how many data points you need? A minimum?
So I was always taught, well, it depends on the population. So I presume it's a percentage, but I was always taught I remember being in a statistics class and it being 1,000, but I think that's relevant to the population that we were talking about then. So I would say something in the region of 1% of the population.
Well, they said you need 5 data points to find to be representative of 92% of the median. So you're within kind of a range that's statistically significant. Obviously, the more you have, the better.
Yeah. Number of standard deviations.
Yeah. So you only need 5, a minimum of 5, to have something meaningful.
Okay. Now, my maths teacher used to say you can't draw a trend line with at least 3 without at least 3 data points, and 5 makes it better. But I mean, we do need more data points.
But we do tend to focus on, and they talked a lot in this workshop about the one metric that matters, OMTM. which is largely, unfortunately, sometimes focused purely on revenue. From a product point of view, that's probably fair enough. Pounds, pence, dollars, cents. But from a transformational point of view, why do you say no?
Because it depends on the life cycle and where that product is. I could be making a loss on my product to gain market share, and it's not about revenue in that situation. Revenue is when the product is mature.
But revenue is something different, isn't it? Is it revenue? And then we're talking about this is typically a lagging metric, so you don't realise revenue until
well, depending on the length of your cycle,
your research cycle, whatever it might be. But trying to qualify that into something that's measurable, quantifiable metrics, it's tough.
So, did we answer his question?
No, I don't think so. We were just babbling.
I'd encourage you to look at organicagility.com. I think it's .com, if not .org, but I'm pretty sure it's .com. Because there's some pretty cool stuff there. I have no financial benefit in plugging that. I just sort of contributed my time and effort in trying to make it happen. What's the other one?
Jim's other question was how to get leadership to focus on more than just teams during a transformation.
What else should they be focused on, Paul?
Well, it's about strategy, direction, resilience.
Environment. Giving teams the environment and support they need and trusting them to get the job done.
Macro level, it's the HR policies, recruitment policy. Are we attracting the right people? Are we getting rid of the crap people?
So for me, it's again that inward-looking, behavioural self-evaluation, self-reflection. Am I walking the talk? Am I doing what I'm asking and expecting other people to be doing? Because if I'm not, I'm a hypocrite, and no one wants to be led by a hypocrite. And then, so if those are the things that we need those people to be focusing on, the question was how do you get them to focus on it? For me, it's about how much do you want this to be successful, and how much do you actually want the success, and how much is it worth you personally investing in it? It's the standard coaching conversation. Going back to my change equation.
And it's an interesting thing that how long are you prepared to invest in this? When you think that leadership positions typically are not that well, they're gonna relatively short-lived compared to the company. Compared
2
to
years.
Yeah, compared to the teams. The teams are probably going to be there longer than the management, and teams know that.
Yeah.
So you've got to put things in place that actually create a legacy that's going to outlive you, and that those teams can respond to and organise themselves around.
Yeah. There is I'm extrapolating now from Jim, and I'm taking this on myself. I'm not putting this onto Jim, but from a senior leadership position, there is a temptation to focus on short to medium term metrics that enable you to get that next CXO role.
To look successful, yeah.
We had, don't mind saying, Al Norton, who declared 100% agility success when vast parts of the organisation had never heard of it.
Yeah.
And he ended up taking a role with one of our suppliers.
He did, yeah. You're right, yeah.
It's
moved on.
Yeah, I
remember the email saying that Agile is a success, and that's why I was largely benched to move on to something else. We don't need Agile coaches anymore because we've already made it.
Yeah. So this transparency, and it's quite cool. I work with some leadership teams at the moment where it's a lot easier for self-serving behaviours to be surfaced, so that the board as a team or the senior leadership team can call that and say, whoa, that's actually taking us away from our goal, our vision, our commitments, our committed behaviours. And it's harder then for those people to be selfish.
Yeah.
As long as the rest of the team have got the courage to call them on it.
Yeah, I'd like to think of a situation where leadership figures stay longer than 2 years. I might be wrong.
There are some. But that's a symptom of another bigger thing, in that you're never paid for your current role. You're never paid what you're worth now.
Yeah.
You're paid. You need to move to get what you're due now, is the kind of conventional wisdom. But if organisations started rewarding people for what they're currently doing, then they'd have less need to move on.
And to link back to Jim's first question, that's probably going to drive the wrong metrics.
Definitely.
If you're incentivized, if you believe I'm only going to be valued, recognised in my next role for having achieved efficiency gain of X or revenue gain of Y, then that's what you're going to measure. That's what you're going to demand that teams do measure.
Yeah. We're going to have to wrap this up. I am cold now. I am cold. Paul's got a hat on. I have not got a hat on.
40% of your body heat, Geoff, you lose through your head.
You've got a massive hat and you've got a massive bushy beard.
Great big bushy beard.
Whereas I haven't got a hat and I haven't got a beard.
My favourite film.
So we're gonna have to wrap this up.
Get some food.
We appreciate the questions. We appreciate the interaction. There are lots of places that you can follow us now.
Oh,
the
yeah,
Agile
loads.
Pubcast has an Instagram account. I have an Instagram account. So does Paul. We have Twitter, Instagram. We're on Facebook.
No.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, wait.
Yeah, because Instagram is owned by Facebook.
Yes, by default. We're also so keep an eye out, because we're doing some live stuff coming up in the next month or so, aren't we?
There's a lot going on. We've got some live in-person meet-up groups. We're also doing some crossover podcasts
With the
other
States.
podcasts in America and other places. There may even be a studio version with something else, but these are all, we're getting some interesting requests now. So
And look out in New York. If you're going to the Scrum Gathering in New York, we'll be doing something in New York when we'll do
that's
something.
May, isn't it?
I know, it's
another lifetime. But
yeah,
for
keep
now,
in touch.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers, mate. Nice one. Ta-da. Good stuff. Freezing cold in it. Baltic.
Fuck